It's interesting because normally I'll have another screen, and I should have put it on Facebook over there on my other one, and I would actually have been looking at it. Well, good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm Carbon County Commissioner Chris Lukasevich, and today is the organizational meeting and an overview of Government Study Commission and Home Rule. I want to emphasize that no decision has been made to move forward with a home rule ballot measure or the petition process in order to get it on the ballot. Again, this is to provide an overview, educate those who are here with us and those further abroad, and also after the presentation portion to discuss a strategy to help inform a decision-making process in regards to moving forward with the Home Rule Government Study Commission initiative. What I'm going to ask for those who are here with me this afternoon, I'm going to ask you to hold all questions until the end, because a lot of the answers are going to go into strategy, and I want to kind of keep that close hold format. Those who are here with me, you've been provided with a copy of the Home Rule and Government Study Commission slide deck. That's for your use. Also, what I normally also do to get started is to hand out a quiz. And this is a 32-question quiz about Carbon County government and Carbon County. And really what it is, it's to sensitize each and every one of us to how little, and unfortunate it is, about how little we know about our county, specifically the county government, but also the municipality government, so we're talking boroughs and townships, and of course the makeup, the composition, our geography of our county. So it's so important to be informed and understand not only your county, but of course in this particular aspect, your county government. So let's go ahead, let's move forward. All right, here's the agenda we're going to follow. I'm going to go ahead, talk a little bit about the Federalist Papers. I'm going to look at the references that I'll be using throughout this conversation. Give a perspective of Carbon County government according to me, how I see it organized and how I see it work. And again, this is an insider view of county government. Give a wave top overview of home rule, right? That's kind of the 1/25 level. Then I'm going to look a little bit and update us on how we have come to the point of having the opportunity to implement home rule in Pennsylvania, which is referred to as Act 62. Talk about taxation with little representation that we have right now. What authorities does a county who adopts a home rule charter and home rule, what they can and cannot do? I'll talk about the process for going to a government study commission and then the consideration for adoption of a home rule charter and implementation of home rule. Then I'll go into a deep dive of a timeline, a proposed timeline, and it is fictional, hypothetical in nature. Look at who would oppose home rule, and then we're going to cut it off. We're going to cut the live stream off, and then we're going to go into a discussion about the presentation strategy, the way ahead. So let's go ahead. Let's move forward. First, I want to talk about, the Federalist Papers as our representatives, our first representatives, were trying to get our Constitution passed, right? There were a series of papers that were written, and really they were published in that time. Primarily they were focusing on the citizens of New York. It was 3 of our founding fathers. And I think it's important because we tend to think of home rule as something new and novel and something we should be, let's say, scared about, nervous about, something that hasn't really progressed. But keep in mind that democracy has been present for about nearly 2,600 years. And out of about 167 countries, 96 have adopted democracy. So if you look at the number of countries that have actually adopted, or the rate of adoption of democracy, it's actually pretty slow, right? Now, if you take home rule, 7 of 60 counties in 50 years have adopted home rule. So counties in Pennsylvania are adopting home rule quicker than countries in the world have adopted democracy. I just think that's interesting. So let me read this. And normally I don't like reading slides, but I love this from one of our 3 founding fathers who wrote the Federalist Papers using pseudonyms. Hearken not to the voice that hearken not to the voice which petulantly tells you that the form of government recommended for adoption is a novelty in the political world, that it has never yet had a place in theories of the wildest projectors, that it rashly attempts what is impossible to accomplish. No, my countymen, shut your ears against this unhallowed language. Shut your hearts against the poison which it conveys. Because home rule isn't novel. It isn't new. In Pennsylvania, it's existed for 50 years. But we can take it back to Europe, to England. So here are the references that I'm going to utilize. Obviously, the Constitution, the state of Pennsylvania, critically important. The Home Rule Guide in Pennsylvania, May 2020. This is a publication of DCED, so produced right here by our own government entity, DCED. The County Code. This is the current and existing form of county government in Carbon County, right? This guides our authorities and our responsibilities. It dictates from Harrisburg how this county government will operate, how it will be organized. The county code, 3 commissioners. And then finally, Act 62, right? Adopted 50 years ago in April, which gives Pennsylvanians, or empowers Pennsylvanians, to adopt a form and an organization of government that will best meet the needs of their specific county, municipality, borough, or township. These are all available online. If you go to www.carbonforhomerule.org, it could be the number 4 or the word 4, right? Carbonforhomerule.org. All these references are available, plus a multitude of other resources. And I would argue it's the most intensive and exhaustive library of home rule in Pennsylvania that currently exists online. All right, so county government, according to me, going from left to right, you see kind of the pseudo-Venn diagram. But really what that is showing what should be the role, a perceived role, of us in county government, right? The commissioners, right? The strategic environment, having the vision, the purpose, method, end state, where we're going, how we're going to get there. The row officers and department heads, they're at that operational level. They're ensuring we continue to move in the county towards that ultimate end state, what we're trying to achieve in the vision. And who's doing the tactical level work down in the trenches, right? That's the staff, the caseworkers, right? The folks who are really doing the day-to-day grind of the work. Now, interesting about county government and the county code, it's kind of like what you kind of see as 3 branches of government, right? Really, at the county level. Because they have unique authorities and responsibilities. And we could argue and say these are actually 3 silos of excellence. But I would say sometimes these silos are actually obstacles to communication, obstacles to uniformity, obstacles to effectiveness and efficiency, because the commissioners, and you'll see an organizational chart, responsible for about 21 departments of the county. But then you have the row officers, who again have kind of niche responsibilities, and then they have 1620 authority, which gives them the right to hire, fire, and manage their personnel. And then ultimately, or separately, you have the courts. Again, they have similar hire, fire, manage responsibilities and a significant level of independence, because indeed they are the courts. All right, so here's a quick organizational chart of Carbon County, and again, these are all online. You see the commissioners, right? And first and foremost, under the chief of commissioners is their executive officer, their 2IC, second in command for all intents and purposes, that individual who manages county government on a day-to-day basis. And then under the county code, and in Carbon County, that's really the chief clerk. And coming down from the chief clerk are those 21 departments that make up that branch that falls under the Board of Commissioners. There's about 240 employees in that particular silo that I described. And they are currently in 5 bargaining units. One's a memorandum of agreement, which is the corrections, the sergeants, that have a memorandum of agreement so that they fall under basically the same guidelines as the Teamster contract. But you have 5 bargaining or collective units for all intent and purposes. Then you also have the row officers, right? Orthonotary, clerk of courts, controllers, coroner, DA, recorder of deeds, register of wills, sheriff, treasurer. Remember, they have that unique authority to hire, fire, and manage. Right. Then you have the judiciary, which of course consists of the Court of Common Pleas. We have 3 judges, president, judge, plus 2 additional judges, a court administration, and then the magisterial courts or judges that we have in Carbon County. You also see domestic relations under there, juvenile probation, the law library, and they have their own IT section also. I do want to highlight, coming down from the commissioners, because they're so closely aligned with the judiciary, but they fall under the commissioners, you have the public defender, who does have a level of independence, different from the departments that are under the commissioner. And then, of course, you have the prison. So I just like to put them in a chart, show the connection or role they play with the judicial branch, just because they have a notable role. All right. Speaking, about 72 folks fall under the judiciary. So let's talk a little bit about home rule, because I think the easiest way to understand home rule, because you no longer necessarily have 3 commissioners. Although there is one home rule county of 7 that does have 3 commissioners, but you cannot deceive that. But nonetheless, organizationally, it's more like a publicly traded company, right? You have a CEO, a chief executive officer, a chief operating officer, and that might be a better definition, a COO. And then that individual, the COO, is managed by a board of directors, a council of commissioners, or a board of counselors, right? So you have your COO, and then you have that board of directors. And that's what you'll see in home rule, right? Where you have an executive manager plus commissioners or counselors, as they're normally often referred to in home rule. But what does home rule provide? Well, it shifts responsibility for local government from the state and empowers the local municipality through, for all intent and purposes, a county level constitution. It's a charter. Again, of course, that can also be at the borough or municipality level, right? It allows the charter allows exercise power and function not denied by the Constitution, Home Rule Charter, or General Assembly. So you can really act in a Home Rule county, act anywhere. We're not specifically limited by law. So you have to stay within the confines of the Constitution, of the laws or the rules put forth by the General Assembly or your charter. It is, though, limited independence. It's not declaring independence from the Commonwealth, because with Home Rule, you can act anywhere except where specifically limited by state law. Without Home Rule, like Carbon County right now, we can act only where specifically authorized by law. So if it's not in the county code, county commissioners can't do it, can't act on it, can't enforce it, have no authority or responsibility to do so. All right. Right now we have 7 counties who have adopted Home Rule. Lehigh, Luzerne, Northampton are the 3 that are our neighbors, but we also have Delaware, Allegheny, Lackawanna, and Erie counties also have Home Rule. Right? And you can see, I want to mention Schuylkill County, because betterschuylkill.com, there is a nascent movement in Schuylkill County that is taking place for Home Rule there also. Well, but no, if you could please, would you hold your question till the end? Yeah, just indicate it right there, thank you. All right, so I want to go back a little bit and talk about the timeline, because this past April, right, just last month, we recognized 50 years in which we had the authority at the county and municipal level to adopt Home Rule. So think about this, we're going back to 28 March 1967, where a grassroots campaign had started for the adoption of Home Rule. The first thing that occurred in 1967 was across Pennsylvania looking at the potential for Home Rule. Right here, and you can see where Carbon County voted, 43-47 yes, 24-15 no. So that was 67. Jump ahead to 68, because this was really what would be similar to a constitutional Congress, right? Where what was convened was a body to look at certain modifications to the Constitution of Pennsylvania. So that was that constitutional convention in Pennsylvania that took place. This was a special election that took place specific to the recommendations, which gave counties and municipalities the authority to adopt Home Rule. Right? Then finally, 13 April 1972, it was formally enacted by Governor Schaff at the time. Yep. So here it was 67, 6th May, here, that's the timeline that flows. All right. So I like to talk about taxation, not without representation, but with little representation. I'm talking about at the county level, right? Think about this. Rocky and Wayne, my 2 colleagues, are from Lehigh, adjacent to Jim Thorpe. I'm from Jim Thorpe. 23 municipalities in Carbon County. Yet direct representation, only 2 municipalities of the 23 actually have direct representation, which means only 15 of every 100 citizens have direct representation. Right, and here you see just under 10,000 of almost 65,000 Carbonites. Right? Jim Thorpe Lehigh only makes up 4.25% of the land mass of Carbon County. So basically what you're seeing is for every commissioner, you have about 21 to 22,000 residents ratio. But think about this, let's talk about our school districts, right? Who have 9 school directors, right? So in Jim Thorpe, for example, every 1,728 residents have 1 director. Pretty significant difference in ratio compared to 1 to 21,583 compared to 1,728. Now look at Borough Council. We'll go to Lehighton. For every Borough Council member, of which there's 7, they represent 779 individuals. Now even go down to the township level, of which there's actually 2 different levels of townships in Pennsylvania. Bear in mind there's 9 classes of counties, right? And then you have 2 classes of townships. For example, out in Lower Tolmenson, that has 3 supervisors. 1 supervisor to every little more than 1,000. And then you see up in Penn Forest, 1 representative for every 2,000. So you can see, interesting, isn't it, that as you go down from the county to the different levels, there's a greater level of direct representation, right? Because more individuals are representing smaller numbers. So that creates greater access to you as a voter, you as a citizen. All right. Well, what could we do? What could Carbon County do with the home rule? Well, first and foremost, understand the county code is the cookie cutter approach to government, right? It is the Commonwealth, the General Assembly, Harrisburg dictating how we will organize, how we will run Carbon County government. Bearing in mind, 67 counties, while we have many similarities, we also have many differences. So wouldn't it be great to be able to task organize to the unique needs and requirements of Carbon County? I have a chart I put together. I'm going to hand it out here. If you guys would just give me a second, I'm going to move off camera. So here's my home rule smart book. This contains all the research that I've done in hard copy. It contains the charters of the 7 counties. It contains the results of various government study commissions, which is really the first significant step in home rule. And what I've provided and I'm going to show this chart in a moment. It's also posted online in that carbonforhomerule.org. This is an assessment and comparison of the 7 home rule counties with the county code and Carbon County specifically. You know, it's what each charter contains and how it might differ from Carbon County that falls under the county code. Because what we see in the charters, term limits, right? Right now, a commissioner can serve as long as the people elect him, right? And some people might say, well, that's a term limit in itself, getting voted out of office. Well, the unfortunate reality of Carbon County is, and I expect most places, if you ever work the polls, what you actually find out, the majority of voters truly don't understand what the accomplishments, shortcomings, deficiencies, strengths, weaknesses of the different candidates are. I've seen it work in the polls. It's just the unfortunate reality. They don't have time to keep on top of county government. They don't have time, or they don't subscribe to the local newspaper. They live in Carbon County, but they work in the Lehigh Valley, or they work in New York City, right? So that all creates a challenge to keeping informed. And we tend to have a large majority of underinformed voters. Therefore, that term limit, meaning you voted them out of office, really doesn't hold true. I'll simply probably refer everyone to a previous clerk of courts who spent many years continuing to be reelected, yet there were problems. And why was that occurring? Because people were not aware, because they weren't abreast of what was occurring in county government. Tax increase limits. Right now, county government is limited to 25 mil increase per year. However, they can get an additional 10 mil increase if they go to the courts. So up to 35 mil increase in 1 year. In a home rule charter, you can make that more restrictive, that the county can't raise taxes, your commissioners or council members, let's say more than 10 mil or 5 mil per year, without, let's say, going to a referendum to the population, to the voters, would be an example, right? So you can have public referendums and ballot initiatives. Right now in Carbon County, it doesn't matter if all 64,000 residents, or let's say the 46,000 voters, those eligible voters, say we would like to vote on an initiative on a ballot, to have something placed on the ballot. You have no authority to do that. Now the Board of Commissioners, they can put a ballot measure on, but the voter, you yourselves, we ourselves, cannot petition for any type of ballot measure currently, with the exception of one I'm going to talk about in a minute, right? How about regional at-large representation? You'll see that a lot in home rule charters. You'll see a combination. For example, let me give an example. Currently, right, Carbon County has 3. We're all at large, meaning the entire county votes for us when we run. But what you tend to see is the problem we have here. Only Jim Thorpe and Lee Heighton are, quote unquote, really have that direct representation. So let's say if we had a home rule charter and we said there would be 7 part-time commissioners, because frankly the commissioners, or counselors as they are sometimes referred to, are part-time. What you could do as Carbon County with 5 is, let's say we elect a commissioner from each of the 5 school districts, right? So that would be that regional representation, and then you could have 2 at large. Or if you had a 9-member commission, of course, you could go ahead and do, 5, which would be regionally based, and then 4 commissioners could be at large, voted upon by the entirety. And again, that would help ensure those 5 geographical areas are assured of representation, or assured of representation. So that's just one way to skin that cat. The ability to streamline elected road officers, so really reduce them. You'll see in many home rule counties, the clerk of courts, which is focused on the criminal side, then the prothonotary, which is focused on the civil side of judicial issues, they're actually brought together as one entity under one head. So now you just eliminated unnecessary redundancy, right? So you're starting to streamline. And you'll see that in a lot of the charters, and that's just one example. You'll also see, in regards to that, I'm going to jump to that, the streamlining of elected road officers, with the exception normally of the district attorney, the sheriff, and the controller, you tend to see there are no longer elected officials. Rather, they are merit-based. That is, they go through a formal hiring process. Now, each of the 7 current counties looks at it a little bit different, how many elected officers they have and how many are merit-based hires. I'm a big believer in merit-based, right? You get a position based upon your qualifications, not necessarily you're the most popular person, you have name recognition. Part-time commissioners versus full-time. A county commissioner in Carbon County First year in office, you have a salary of $72,000. On top of that, let's say if you have a family, medical insurance, taxpayers paying $35,000 for that, so that puts you at $107,000. Plus you have, of course, vacation days, sick days that you can take. And again, there's money associated with those days, right? It's lost productivity, lost time in the office, loss of engagement with the citizenry. You also have the benefits such as a very, very robust retirement package in the county. And again, so it's expensive. However, part-time commissioners, as you see in the charters of the Homrule counties, they don't get benefits. $10,000, $12,000 a year versus $115,000, $120,000 once you start adding in, the Social Security, the FICA tax, and everything similar that is paid by the taxpayer. Annual State of the County address required. So you actually know what the vision is for your county and what they are accomplishing. When did you actually ever see a true state of the county? Now I know the Carbon Chamber does something called the State of the County, but they're talking a holistic look. Keep in mind, county commissioners don't run the county. County commissioners run county government. And what did we know from the first couple slides? County commissioners really only administer and manage 21 departments, 245 individuals out of about 400 individuals. So again, county commissioners don't run the county, we run county government, and therefore we really don't get a sense of what county government is achieving, but you could require that. I always loved the thought of increased minority party participation. We probably have 6,000 to 8,000 non-affiliated, independent voters in Carbon County. When was the last time that an independent, non-affiliated voter was elected to office in Carbon County at the county level? I don't know if it's ever actually occurred, but think about the intelligence, the experience that is within individuals in that 6,000 to 8,000 voters. Yet they're never going to have an opportunity, if they were to run to office, to actually win a position. But again, if you expand the commissioners from 3 to 7, you have a greater probability of this untapped resource that we have in the county running for office and actually being elected. Talked about hire, fire, manage personnel to row officers. Well, with home rule, you can eliminate that 1620 authority. So let's say the Board of Commissioners has some crazy rule that says everyone has to wear a tie. Well, everyone will wear a tie, including those who are in the row offices. But it's more about, give you the example I love, annual performance evaluations, right? Now, the 21 departments, 245 folks who fall under the Board of Commissioners, we can enforce that, right? And there's punishment when you don't follow the rules, right? But we have no authority to enforce those performance requirements on those individuals who work for the row officers, right? So we want uniform, enforceable policies and procedures, because that helps ensure consistency, effectiveness, efficiency, and creates a culture, right? A shared culture between individuals and offices. Merit-based competitive hiring, I talked about that, requiring that, and not the good old boy network. Talked about the enforceable common administration and personnel policy. A balanced budget requirement. There is no requirement in Carbon County for the commissioners to propose or have a balanced budget. You may not know this past year, the Board of Commissioners did not have a balanced budget. right? Revenues and expenses didn't add up. We used carryover money from the previous year to quote unquote balance that budget. All right, there's the chart I was talking about. And again, I don't really expect anyone to be able to read it, but it is available on CarterForHomeRule.org. If you go to my Facebook page, C4 Commissioners, it's also available there. And again, what you will see when you look at it, across the top, you'll see the 7 home rule counties. And then you'll see Carbon County, which is a county code county. And down on the left side, I broke it down kind of into categories, right? We talked about the county executive, right? The executive branch. I talked about the county, let's say, the legislative authority of branches. Look at the row offices, county administration and finances, and citizens' rights. So this is how the areas in which home rule charters have added fidelity, provided change to increase effectiveness and efficiency of government. So again, it makes a pretty easy comparison for you. And you know what? Email me at clukasevich@carboncounty.net or c4commissioner@gmail.com. I'll email you a copy of it. But again, it is on the Carbon for Home Rule page. So when you get a chance, take a look at this chart, because again, this is really all your homework and research done for you. I was just looking at the charters and what county commissioners in home rule counties were paid, right? Here, 7,000, here, 8,000, 12,000 here, 10,000 here. This is the only one, Lackawanna, that actually has full-time commissioners, 76,000. Here, 10,000, and here, 30,000. So again, there's a vast difference in how each county approaches it. But if you're looking for saving money by having commissioners who aren't getting 72,000 a year plus benefits, there is an option here. All right, Government Study Commission. So this is the wave top, how it works. So either the Board of Commissioners can vote to place on the ballot a measure such as this, and it is clearly defined in the law what the ballot measure would have to say, that the Board of Commissioners would vote on to have it on the ballot. Shall a Government Study Commission, 7911, be elected to study the existing form of government of the municipality, to consider the advisability of an adoption of a home rule charter, and if advisable, to draft and to recommend a home rule charter. So this is the first step, right? A ballot measure. It's either done by the Board of Commissioners, at least 13 weeks prior to the election, doing an ordinance. We're just doing that for a ballot measure for November, are we not? For the $10 million bond for ag land preservation and open space. That's a ballot measure the Board of Commissioners voted on. Or a petition by the citizenry. If we can get 5% of the last governor race total to sign a petition wanting to put that on the ballot, that could be placed on a ballot. Right now that'd be about 1,142 individuals. This is the last general election for governor. So what happens if that petition is decided to move forward? You'll be voting, we would vote for two things. One, shall a Government Study Commission be formed of 7, 9, or 11, and that has to be clarified before it's on the ballot, how many. And what you're also voting on are the commission members. And that would be 7, 9, or 11 individuals whose responsibility would be to assess the existing form of government and see if there is not sufficient shortcomings and deficiencies in the existing form where we should write and put forth to the voter a home rule charter for consideration of adoption. So let's say the voters say, yes, we want a government study commission. They vote for 7, 9, or 11 commission members. Then that commission would have up to an 18-month period in which they would study, deliberate, and draft a charter if they deem it necessary. And ultimately, taking to the public, to the voter, a ballot measure for adoption of home rule. And eventually, if the voters approve it, simple majority, then it goes into an implementation phase, which could take years actually to move from county code organization structure to home rule. So that's kind of the broad picture. Well, how could it potentially look like in Carbon County? Well, this is a detailed version, and again, this is available on my Facebook page. It's also available at carbonforhomerule.org. This is just the true breakdown. For example, I could propose a motion at the next, or the 16 June Commissioners meeting that would say, shall the Government Study Commission of 7 members be elected to study the existing form of government? And if either Rocky or Wayne would vote with me, that could be on the next ballot, which would be in November. Well, let's say they wouldn't vote with that motion. So what would happen if the motion would fail, starting on 21 June, which is the 20th Tuesday prior to the election on 8 November, would have a period from the 20th Tuesday all the way through to the 13th Tuesday that individuals would have to go out and get petitions signed. Remember, 1,142 signatures would be required in Carbon County. That's 5% of the quantity of persons voting for governor in the last gubernatorial general election. So after that 13th Tuesday, if 1,142 signatures were acquired, then those who want to be on the Government Study Commission will have a period of 3 weeks in which they have to get 2% of the number of voters who voted in the last gubernatorial general election, or 200 signed voters of any party, whichever is less. So in Carbon County, you'd have to have 200 signatures on a petition for you to become a candidate for the Government Study Commission in November. So by 30 August, everything would be set up. There would be a ballot measure, and all candidates that wanted to run to be a part of the Government Study Commission would be set. Then you have 8 November, E-Day, Election Day. 20 days after, if it was voted in the affirmative, 20 days prior, no later than, that commission would be formed up. And again, it would start that 18-month process to assess and evaluate the current form of government. And then in the April 24 election, the ballot measure to adopt home rule would be in front of the voters of Carbon County. Now, I didn't go into a lot of detail because it is specific detail, but again, take a look at this. This is available online. It's a good, quick overview, but with great fidelity. Again, this is hypothetical, just using the current election cycle. The think it's important to understand, the Government Study Commission members don't become your commissioners, right? Their role is the Government Study Commission. Also, what happens in charter implementation, should a county move, or borough or township move to home rule, you see the elected officers under the county code are actually fulfilling the remainder of their time in office. So you're not cutting your term short. Everyone would kind of grandfather in and just kind of time out of their position. All right, so who would oppose home rule? Democratic Party, Republican Party, elected officials, elected politicians, right? Those who believe that a lifetime career is to be a politician versus those who believe that you come in, you make a difference, you have a term limit, you get out, you bring in new blood, you bring in new ideas, right? You make positive change, right? Why the parties? They're going to lose power, right? They're no longer electing or pushing forward candidates for 9-row offices, the clerk of courts, the prothonotary, the coroner, the district attorney potentially, right? The sheriff, right? They're no longer in the process because you may be doing merit-based hires for some of those positions, unlike in the county code, right? So they have less of a role. Think about this too. We already talked about non-traditional candidates, those being not from the major parties, more likely to involve themselves because there is a greater probability when there are 7, 9, or 11 part-time commissioners for them to be elected. So you're creating more opportunity for individuals. But you will historically see a disinformation campaign very strong. The first thing they're going to say, home rule charters have unlimited tax. Home rule charters give counties unlimited taxation authority. Well, it potentially could, but why would you as a voter vote for a charter that says your new board of commissioners under a home rule charter have unlimited taxing authority, right? You wouldn't vote for it, right? So there's checks and balances. Just like in home rule, there's a check and balance. Think about this, right now, the 3 commissioners in Carbon County were the legislative branch, were the executive branch of government. In home rule, you have a legislative branch and an executive branch. What do you have? You have checks and balances, right? So, perfect example, if you look at the chart, the matrix that I made, you will see that the legislative branch has veto authority. So let's say that chief executive who was elected to run the day-to-day operations of the county implemented an ordinance or resolution or wanted to implement something. That could be overridden by the council or the commissioners, right? Not dissimilar to what you see play out at the state and federal government level, right? A law can be enacted or try to be enacted, but it can be vetoed. So you have that check and balance also, again, that you don't have right now. All right, so now I'm going to drop into discussions, questions, have a conversation here. For those online, thank you for tuning in. Again, you can give me a call at 570-503-6780. Right, that's my cell phone, normally on my hip, but it's live streaming right now. Whenever you want, you have questions about home rule, you want to consider joining a potential movement, yet to be determined, 570-503-6780. See Lukasevich at carboncounty.net, Christoph.Lukasevich@gmail. Hey, reach out to me at the county, 570-325-3611. Ton of ways to get in contact with me. Thank you for joining me this afternoon. Hope you have a wonderful weekend. Stay hydrated. Enjoy the sunshine while it's here and the nice warm temperatures. Thank you.